Dylan was a successful man, the kind you see on television, but with a void no amount of wealth could fill. During an unexpected walk through the bustling streets of the city, he could hardly believe it when his eyes met Mariana's, his great love from the past. There she was, in a state of vulnerability that tugged at his heart, accompanied by two girls whose eyes seemed to mirror his own. It was as if fate, that old manipulator, had orchestrated a scene to shake up his life. Imagine having everything: success, wealth, status. Yet, deep down, feeling like something is missing. That's how Dylan lived for years, until an unexpected reunion changed everything. He found Mariana, the love he believed he had lost forever, living in conditions no human being should endure. Beside her were twin girls whose eyes reflected a truth impossible to ignore. What seemed like a twist of fate unveiled a secret no one had ever dared to tell him. But this story isn't just about reunions. It's about the invisible forces that shape our lives, often without us realizing. Dylan discovered that the separation between him and Mariana wasn't a coincidence, but the result of a web of manipulations and lies, orchestrated by those he trusted most. A powerful family, willing to do anything to preserve their legacy, even if it meant destroying the purest love he had ever known. Now, faced with so many revelations, Dylan finds himself at a crossroads: continue living in the shadow of others' decisions, or fight to reclaim the life that was stolen from him. This is a story of love, betrayal, and redemption, but also a powerful reminder that the truth always finds its way. After all, what would you do if you discovered the love of your life carried a secret capable of changing everything? Dylan was a successful man, the kind you see on television, but with a void no amount of wealth could fill. During an unexpected walk through the bustling streets of the city, he could hardly believe it when his eyes met Mariana's, his great love from the past. There she was, in a state of vulnerability that tugged at his heart, accompanied by two girls whose eyes seemed to mirror his own. It was as if fate, that old manipulator, had orchestrated a scene to shake up his life. What no one could have anticipated was that the girls by Mariana's side carried an undeniable truth. Their features were a living reflection of Dylan, as if the universe had played with mirrors. He stood there, frozen, feeling the weight of years of forced separation, a story his own family had helped to shape. It was a mix of shock and hope, but also the beginning of an emotional whirlwind that would leave him breathless. Mariana, on the other hand, had the eyes of someone who had seen the worst life had to offer and still found a way to endure. Her struggle was evident in her tired but determined shoulders and in the timid smiles of the twins. It was as if her presence quietly declared, "I'm here, despite everything." Dylan realized that this reunion wasn't just about the two of them. There was something greater at stake, something money alone could never fix. He tried to approach her, but the words wouldn't come. How do you ask someone about the years you lost when the silence of your own family was the greatest culprit? Each step toward Mariana felt like an attempt to mend a past that should never have been broken. And there, amidst glances and hesitation, began an exchange of secrets that would change their lives forever. As Dylan struggled to organize his thoughts, Mariana revealed that the twins were the result of a love she had never forgotten. But how could she trust someone who disappeared without explanation? The answer lay in her silent tears, which spoke more than any words could. Dylan knew something was wrong, that the story was far deeper and layered than he could yet understand. The scene felt like something out of a movie script, but it wasn't fiction. It was real life, with its unpredictable twists and emotional traps. Dylan realized the questions he had avoided for years now demanded answers. Where to start? Perhaps with the gaze of the twins, which seemed to plead for help without uttering a word. The unexpected reunion was only the first chapter of a journey that would challenge everything Dylan thought he knew about love, family, and loyalty. But one thing was certain, that moment had the power to change everything. Amid so many conflicting emotions, Dylan decided it was time to act, because life doesn't wait for indecision. Dylan returned home with his head spinning. Between memories of the past and the vision of Mariana and the twins, something didn't add up. He began sifting through old files, stored letters, and even forgotten conversations. That's when the pieces started to fit together. His own family had orchestrated the separation. Manipulation, lies, and control had been the tools used to erase Mariana from his life. It was as if he had lived years in a bubble of deception. It wasn't easy to accept that the people he trusted most had destroyed the purest thing in his life. Dylan recalled conversations where his mother had mentioned how Mariana wasn't good enough. Always subtle phrases, planting seeds of doubt in his mind. Those same words now echoed as bitter truths. He realized he had been a pawn in a family game of interests and status. When he confronted his brother, who had always been the competitive shadow in his life, Dylan received confirmation of his worst fears. It was all true. Forged documents, intercepted letters, and even a plan to convince Mariana that Dylan had chosen another life. What had once been mere suspicion turned into outright indignation. He wondered how greed and pride could destroy something so precious. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was also practical. His family had used money and influence to ensure that Mariana disappeared from his life. Their control was so pervasive that even his closest friends were pushed away under the guise of protecting the family's reputation. This led him to wonder how many other decisions in his life had been manipulated without his knowledge. Dylan reflected on how familial manipulation can be devastating, especially when disguised as protection. He began to dig deeper, determined to expose every lie. With each discovery, his hurt grew, but so did his resolve to change the course of events. After all, if the truth isn't confronted, the cycle of pain only continues. As the revelations unfolded, Dylan felt a mix of anger and guilt. How had he not seen this before? Perhaps because, when love and trust are involved, it's easier to believe those who claim to be on your side. But he knew he couldn't let regret consume him. There was something more important to do: rescue Mariana and her daughters from this web of lies. The family's betrayal was a harsh blow, but it was also a call to action. Dylan realized he wasn't just fighting for a lost love, but for the truth. And so, he decided to move forward, even if it meant confronting those he thought he would never have to question. As Dylan grappled with the revelations about his family, Mariana opened up about the difficult years she had endured. Raising twin daughters on her own, without any support, demanded a strength that few could comprehend. She recounted nights where she had to choose between feeding the girls or herself, how she slept with one eye open to protect her daughters from the constant dangers of the streets. Survival had become her specialty. Mariana recalled moments that tested her limits. Like the time a stranger offered help but only sought to exploit her vulnerability. She learned the hard way not to trust easily. Every decision was a gamble. One mistake could cost her daughter's safety. In that harsh reality, Mariana discovered a courage only mothers know. As she often said, when you have two little lives depending on you, giving up isn't an option. Despite all the hardships, Mariana was determined to give her daughters a sense of normalcy. She improvised games, told bedtime stories, and celebrated small moments, like sharing a piece of bread as if it were a feast. Life doesn't stop for pity, she'd say, but we can create little islands of joy amidst the chaos. It was a practical wisdom Dylan couldn't ignore. She also faced another challenge, keeping the truth about Dylan hidden from the girls. They often asked about their father, but Mariana, wanting to protect them, made up stories. "He's far away," she'd say with a forced smile. It was her way of preventing them from growing up with resentment, but each lie weighed heavily on her heart. Every unspoken truth was a reminder of the love she had lost. Her struggle wasn't just physical or financial, it was deeply emotional. The streets are unforgiving, and Mariana knew she had to be strong at all times. On one occasion, she stood up to a man trying to intimidate her daughters, proving that a mother's love can transform even the most fragile woman into a fierce warrior. Her resilience was a testament to the unbreakable strength of the human spirit, even in the most adverse conditions. Hearing all of this, Dylan realized that his absence was not just a failure, but also a lesson in how love and determination can overcome any barrier. Mariana was a living example of sacrifice and courage, and he knew he needed to make up for lost time. Not with empty promises, but with concrete actions that showed he was ready to be the father and partner she and the girls deserved. These stories of struggle and triumph not only brought Dylan closer to Mariana, but also deepened his resolve to seek justice. He understood that before moving forward, he needed to repair the damage caused by his own family. This newfound desire to protect and rebuild their future would guide them to the next step in their journey. Determined to make amends for the past, Dylan embarked on an unrelenting quest for justice. He began gathering evidence to confirm his family's manipulations. He hired private investigators, scoured old records, and spoke to people who could testify. Every document uncovered, every statement collected, was a piece of the puzzle proving the extent of the betrayal. Dylan wasn't just seeking answers, he wanted to hold those who destroyed his and Mariana's lives accountable. He discovered fraudulent contracts and altered letters, meticulously crafted to ensure Mariana was erased from his history. His own mother, who had always prided herself on the family's integrity, had led much of the scheme. This revelation made Dylan question everything. How could someone coldly manipulate another's emotions like that? For him, this was no longer about revenge, it was about putting an end to a web of lies. The pursuit of justice was more than an act of reparation for Dylan, it was an act of protection. He knew that as long as the twins were exposed to this family, they would remain in danger. He needed irrefutable evidence to ensure that no judge or lawyer could dismiss the truth. That's when he realized his fortune could finally serve a true purpose, hiring the best professionals and taking the case to court. However, Dylan was aware that justice isn't always fair. He braced himself for obstacles, from attempts at bribery to veiled threats. This was a battle where he would risk his reputation, his wealth, and, most importantly, his resolve. But he was willing to stake it all. Fear only has power when we allow it, he would say, a mantra that drove him forward. Initially skeptical, Mariana began to believe that Dylan was genuinely committed. He kept her informed of every development, showing her that this time, he wouldn't back down. The twins, still unaware of the complexities unfolding, sensed a change, a father present and a mother who could finally breathe a little easier. It was the beginning of a new chapter, but the conclusion was still far off. Despite the progress, Dylan knew that exposing his family wouldn't erase the years that had been lost. But it was an essential step toward building a future. He also understood that Mariana needed more than justice, she needed emotional security and stability for herself and her daughters. This thought drove him to go beyond vengeance, seeking a resolution that would bring peace to everyone involved. The pursuit of justice, however, is rarely linear. It's a winding path, full of highs and lows. But each step brought Dylan closer to his true mission, to protect Mariana and her daughters from any future threats. He knew that in the end, the truth would be his greatest ally. And on the horizon, a new revelation was about to unfold. Dylan knew that his connection with the twins went beyond mere appearances. Deep down, he felt they were his daughters, but he needed proof to solidify this truth. He suggested to Mariana that they do a DNA test, both to clarify the past and to protect the girl's future. Mariana hesitated, not because she doubted, but because she feared what this confirmation might trigger. Still, she knew that the truth was inevitable. The test was done discreetly, with almost palpable tension. While waiting for the results, Dylan tried to connect more with the girls. He started to notice small details, the way they smiled, their little quirks, and even their passion for solving problems, traits that reflected himself. It was as if the lost time began to dissolve, making space for something new and powerful, the certainty that he had already been a father, even before the official paperwork. When the results arrived, the confirmation was overwhelming and emotional. Dylan was, indeed, the father of the twins. The news brought a flood of emotions, joy, relief, and a silent guilt for the years he hadn't been there. Mariana, in turn, looked at Dylan with a mixture of acceptance and hope. What had once been just a suspicion was now an undeniable truth, a solid foundation on which to rebuild their lives. This truth changed everything. Dylan began to think differently, act differently. He stopped seeing the girls only as a reflection of the past and started imagining them as the future. He began to plan ways to be the father they deserved, present, protective, and responsible. More than that, he He wanted to be the type of father who teaches by example, inspiring the next generation to be better. Mariana also felt relief, but the weight of the past still lingered. She wondered how Dylan's family would react to this revelation, fearing more manipulation and threats. Dylan noticed this concern and assured her that, this time, no one would interfere. He was determined to protect Mariana and the twins at all costs, even if it meant facing his family head-on. With paternity confirmed, Dylan felt a new strength within himself. He knew that true love goes beyond DNA, but having this certainty gave him an even stronger reason to fight. He began to envision a future where his daughters not only had a present father, but also a safe and loving environment in which to grow. The confirmation of paternity was not the end of the fight, but the beginning of a new phase. Now, Dylan was ready to face any obstacle to ensure that Mariana and her daughters had the future they deserved. But there was still one final piece of this puzzle to confront: the reconciliation of the past with the present and the ultimate showdown with his family. Dylan didn't waste any time acting. With paternity confirmed, he realized he needed to create a safe and stable environment for Mariana and the twins. He bought a house in a peaceful neighborhood, surrounded by trees and with enough space for the girls to play freely without fear. But it wasn't just about luxury, it was about rebuilding their trust, showing them he was there to stay. The house wasn't just a roof over their heads, it was a symbol of a new beginning. Mariana, initially reluctant, gradually started to accept the help. Trust didn't come easily to her, but Dylan made sure to include her opinions in every decision. He didn't want to be a distant savior, he wanted to be a present partner. Choosing furniture together, creating a themed room for the twins, every gesture showed he was committed. "This isn't just a house, it's a home," he said, and those words resonated deeply with Mariana. Moreover, Dylan knew that a safe haven wasn't just physical, it was emotional too. He suggested Mariana start therapy, both to process the traumas of the past and to strengthen herself for the future. He also found a family therapist, ready to work on himself and help the twins navigate the arrival of a father in their lives. It was an important step to ensure the past wouldn't continue to cast shadows over the present. Dylan also began investing in simple, meaningful moments. Park outings, movie nights at home, and even learning to cook dishes the girls loved. He knew memories weren't made with grand gestures, but with the little moments in everyday life. "A father is present in the details," he would say, learning that being a good father was more about showing up than making promises. For Mariana, these gestures were more than actions, they were proof that Dylan was working to earn his place in their lives. Still, there was a constant fear that all of this might crumble. Dylan understood her fears and made sure to reinforce his commitment. He wasn't just trying to fix the mistakes of the past, but to build a future that was unshakable. Meanwhile, the twins started to open up more. They, who once seemed shy and distrustful, now ran around the house with laughter that filled the air with hope. Dylan saw in them what he had always wanted, a place where they could be free, loved, and protected. He knew this sense of security was what truly mattered, more than any material possessions. But creating this safe haven also meant facing external challenges. Dylan knew there were still unresolved issues with his family, and that the comfort of today would only last if he ensured that Mariana and the twins would never be threatened again. The confrontation was near, and Dylan was ready to fight for his new family until the very end. Dylan knew that, to ensure a secure future for Mariana and the twins, he would have to face his family. But this confrontation wouldn't just be an emotional outburst, it would be strategic, backed by evidence and determination. He began planning his approach, gathering documents, messages, and any proof he could find to expose the crimes and manipulations. It was as if he were building the most important case of his life, because it was. He decided to call a family meeting, but this time, not to seek advice or receive orders. Dylan walked into the room with the posture of someone who would no longer be manipulated. He presented the facts clearly, from the forged contracts to the interference in his relationship with Mariana. There were no shouts or empty accusations, just an undeniable truth that left his family members speechless. "You took years of happiness from me, but not one more second," he said firmly. His mother tried to justify their actions, claiming that everything was done to protect the family legacy. But Dylan didn't yield. He knew the real motivation was control and pride, not love. He made it clear that, from that moment on, he would make his own choices. More than that, he set boundaries. Any attempt to interfere in his life or Mariana's would be met with legal consequences. Beyond confronting his family, Dylan knew that redemption required more than just removing the threat. He needed to build a future free of fear for Mariana and the girls. He took steps to ensure their safety, from legal protection to financial plans that would guarantee they would never face the hardships of the past again. It wasn't just an act of reparation, it was a commitment to their future. Mariana, watching it all unfold, saw in Dylan a transformed man. He was no longer the young man swayed by family expectations, but a father and partner willing to fight for his new family. This new Dylan gave her not only hope but also the strength to believe in a future where the twins would grow up free from threats and manipulation. The twins, unaware of the complexity of what was happening, continued to be the light that guided Dylan. He watched them playing and knew that every sacrifice was worth it. His plan for redemption wasn't just about correcting the mistakes of the past, but about ensuring they had an example of courage, resilience, and true love. Dylan's redemption was not only a personal victory, but a milestone for the family he had chosen to protect. But as he knew well, every happy ending requires constant effort. He was ready to keep fighting, loving, and building. After all, true love isn't just a feeling, it's a daily action, and Dylan was more than willing to act. Reaching this point was more than just following Dylan and Mariana's story, it was an invitation to reflect on our own choices and relationships. How often do we allow the opinions of others, fears, or even manipulations to determine our paths? What if today was the day to take back control and create the life you truly desire? Dylan showed us that it's possible to transform even the most difficult situations, but this requires courage, action, and above all, a commitment to the truth. Are you ready to face the challenges needed to achieve your own redemption? What's holding you back from building the future you deserve? The time to act is now. Don't wait for destiny to make the choices for you. If this story inspired you, leave a comment below and share your thoughts. And to keep learning and finding inspiration from stories like this one, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss any content that could transform your worldview and your life. After all, the next chapter of your story is just waiting for you to write it.